Hey everybody, or nobody, world, or no world, Carpo here. How y'all doing? This video, I guess I'm just making because I wanted to kind of relay a few thoughts that I had on the top of my head right now about, I previously shared a video on Google+, so I guess it won't be on my YouTube feed. Maybe I can find it and post it in the description. It was a very interesting speech. I can't remember the lady's name who did the speech, but it was Tam. That's amazing, or something like that. It's like a conference where they have speakers, scientists, philosophers, whatnot, kind of like TED Talks. But she was doing her own speech. I came across it randomly, and she was talking about anomalies, and she used the example of a picture where it appeared that there was a sky behind these raccoons and a rock floating in the sky. Upon closer inspection, you see that indeed that's not a sky, but that's water, and that it's a reflection of the clouds because the rock's popping out of the water. It's a very simple analogy, a very simple metaphor for so many different things that we see in our daily life, where we see what we want to see, and when something is out of place, that's an anomaly. When something doesn't fit our constructive reality of what we think life should be like. And one of the ways to identify anomalies is by whether you're surprised. And she was saying that when you come across something that surprises you, you should acknowledge that and ask yourself why. And actually begin to train yourself to try to predict what's going to happen next all the time. Because then when you are surprised and you're wrong, you can ask yourself why. Why did you believe this? And we tend to sink into confirmation bias of things we believe, so we fall into this rut of confirming what we believe. Confirmation bias is when you only seek out information that proves what you believe, such as a Christian going to just Christian websites, or a right-winger just going to conservative websites, not getting the full picture of what everybody else thinks and believes, and shutting anyone out without question who thinks otherwise. An irrational thinker, I think I found this when I was looking up what's rational thinking versus critical thinking, and that's what I was trying to figure out. And it's not as fine of a line as you might. I mean, it's pretty much, you could think of it as the same thing. They were saying that critical thinking, they used the example of someone, a couple of people trying to figure out which restaurant to go to and going through all these different things, and by the time they finally decide the restaurants are all closed, they were using critical thinking, they weren't using rational thinking. And that was a pretty good example to me. Rational means you take the whole picture, and critical means you're picking at one particular part. But either way, you take the all-encompassing view of our experiences and ask ourselves and be totally honest with ourselves about things and say, do I really believe this? And if I do, why? And they said, I heard this person saying that you put your money where your mouth is, and make a bet, and they're saying make a monetary bet with people if you really believe something strongly. One guy made a bet. He was saying he made a bet with somebody that he could predict all the outcomes in all the state elections, and he bet $1,000 to some politician. The big guy declined. What it shows is that he didn't have conviction in what he really believed. The money isn't the issue. The issue is if a person really, if you try to make a bet with someone every time you really are convinced something's true, you'll start to ask yourself, do I really believe this? This has happened to me several times, because I'm always willing to make a monetary bet if I'm really backing something up. And people will be like, oh, I don't want to. Okay. And often I'm wrong. And they would have won. And this is the thing, is to admit that we are wrong all the time. That we make little mistakes in our analysis of what's coming next. And this is why we're surprised. This is why surprises happen, because our predictive model is flawed. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's okay. There was I heard one guy saying that he believes that we're hardwired to be bipartisan, or to be partisan, rather, to take a side and to stick with people who believe what we believe, and to bounce ideas off of them and no one else, because everyone else is a shill, or a liar, or a troll, or an agent, or a sinner, or a hater, a murderer, or whatever you want to go. There's always something that a person can do to make a person's if a person disagrees with another person on a situation, and one person presents very good, valid argument, the other person will often resort to ad hominem attacks. This has happened to me, hundreds of times. I had my friend ask me the other day, he's like, "Whatever happened to that guy on YouTube that was giving you shit?" I'm like, "What guy?" Well, it turns out we went to the beach last month, and he went with me, and I was showing him this guy who had sent me these comments, just like, you're a dude, blah, whatever, the typical shit that you get from people who don't have a point to make. And I was like, I forgot all about that guy because I deal with those people all the time. And I realized that in day-to-day life, most people keep their mouths shut. On the internet, people just flap their jaws and have, often nothing to back it up. So most often when I get into a discussion with someone, I'll be like, okay, let's start out here, why do you think this is true? And because this is what I've seen. And then the next response will be something like, go back and smoke another bowl, you stoner, or something, showing that rather than answering the question, the person resorts back to my page, goes to my YouTube channel, sifts through it, and tries to find a flaw in my thinking or something that they disagree with, and then post that on a totally irrelevant. It doesn't even faze me. It's like, why would a person waste their time? But I understand it, because a person who's desperate to prove themselves and to think that they're right will go to any extent to make another person look bad. So you get to the point where when you feel confident in yourself, it doesn't matter. Your ego cannot be destroyed by, I should say, not your ego, but rather your integrity cannot be destroyed by another person's, bad language and selective thinking. And so my observation of people that do that has really led me to an understanding of how not to be. And that's probably one of the biggest things I've gained, is when I've brought up anomalies and people are willing to look past the anomalies, I say, I can't do that. I have to ask myself, what is the truth? And that means I have to be wrong a lot of the time. And I'll get mistaken often for people saying, oh, you just don't want to admit the truth. Be like, no, I thought the truth was this, then I thought it was this, then now I'm back to thinking it's this again. Because the evidence moves back and forth. For example, conspiracies are that way. There was a time when I believed that, when I didn't understand a lot of these things that were going on, then for 10 years I was obsessed with conspiracy theories, and I thought that everything was a conspiracy. Now I'm looking at them and realizing a lot of them aren't. Same thing happened with UFOs. I thought all these sightings were real. Now I realize that some of them probably are, but most of them can be mass delusion. I'll leave you with the, I'll just leave you with that, and I'll tell this story later. It's a pretty good story, but I'm running out of battery. Looks like it's going to die any minute, so maybe I'll try to tell the story. There was pitting on these windshields all over Washington State in the cars, and more and more people started to notice. They came up with, this is back in the 50s, people came up with all these theories that, they were rocks from space, and people even joked around about aliens and whatnot. More and more people started reporting it, and it spread and spread and spread around the state. Come to find out, it's just normal pitting. Everybody has it, they just hadn't noticed it until it hit the news. And all of a sudden, everybody started noticing chips on their windshield. And they laughed at themselves, but for months everybody was obsessed with figuring out what was chipping these windshields. It had always happened. Just until people began talking about it, no one took notice. And that's what we have to remember with the media, with the world we live in. And, just because everybody's talking about something doesn't mean it's true. It's a mass delusion out there.